boys and girls. Let's recap our social studies lesson from yesterday. You learned about three very important documents that were written to make life a little bit easier for Americans. So the first document that you read about was the Declaration of Independence. So I highlighted some key points that you read that are important to remember. So the Declaration of Independence was written in 1776. It was written by Thomas Jefferson. And it was written because people thought that Americans should be free and they should have equal rights. But there was nothing written down on paper to state that. So that is how the Declaration of Independence came about. And they wanted to be able to make their own laws. And so who was this issue with? It was an issue between the Americans and England. So we were fighting England so that we may have equal rights and be able to make our own laws. So it took almost a year for the Declaration of Independence to be written and followed. And when that happened, Americans were now allowed to govern themselves, meaning that we were able to do things that we weren't able to in the beginning. Well, after the Declaration of Independence, people felt like we still needed more, that maybe it just wasn't enough. So the Constitution was written in 1789 because we needed a government. We came up with the Declaration of Independence, but we really didn't have anyone to make sure those rules and laws were followed. So we needed a government. So 39 men signed the Constitution, and it was written to protect the freedoms of people. It allowed us the right to vote, and that's how voting came about. The Declaration of Independence also made sure that the power amongst the governments were all equal. We didn't want, or they didn't want, one part of the government to have more power than the other. And that's where that was decided in the Constitution. And then lastly, you read about the Bill of Rights. So again, the Constitution was written, but maybe it was a little unclear. Maybe it wasn't to the point enough. And so the Bill of Rights were written more clearly for Americans to understand their rights. There were 10 important freedoms written into the Bill of Rights. We're only going to discuss about 5. Those are probably the most heard, the most popular 5 Bill of Rights. And we have our founding fathers to thank for the Bill of Rights. So let's take a look at the 5 most popular, or the ones you'll probably hear most often. The Bill of Rights gave us the freedom of religion. Of course, that means that we can now serve any religion. We can be Baptist, we can be Catholic, we can be Methodist. So we have that right now. No one can tell us what religion we will be. For freedom of press, that means the reporters and the news, they can write what they write. They have freedom. If they want to write it, then they can write it. They're free to do that. We have freedom to gather, to have peaceful gatherings. You're allowed to do that now. Rights to bear arms, that means to carry weapons. We have freedom of speech. No one can tell you what to say. You're free to say what you feel. Okay, so those are probably our most, like I said, you'll hear these a lot, especially in elementary school. Once you get to middle school and high school, you'll probably talk a lot more about the other parts of the Bill of Rights. All right, guys, I'm going to come back with another video walking you through your work for today.